Thanks, Stephen. Really excited to be the moderator for this panel, as this space is definitely something we think quite a lot about and have been seeing so many new and creative innovations in this space. I'm really excited to introduce the three panelists we have for this discussion today. I'll start with Kim. Kim is currently the Chief Supply Chain Officer at Everlane. She oversees sustainability, sourcing, raw materials, product development, production, and quality for all categories. And her specialty is growing design-driven brands with a focus on sustainability, quality, and transparency. She's also spent several years in logistics and distribution, as well as domestic manufacturing. We also have Tran, a former fashion and textile designer who is now a founder and CEO of SOSV portfolio company TomTex. With a deep passion for innovation, she is committed to revolutionizing the materials industry. Her mission is to create sustainable, accessible, and practical alternatives to traditional commercial materials, while also addressing the urgent need to mitigate the environmental crisis facing our planet. And lastly, we have Dennis Nobelius, CEO at Syre, a textile impact company on a mission to de-waste and decarbonize the textile industry at hyperscale. Prior to joining Syre, Dennis was Chief Operations Officer for the premium electric car brand Polestar, CEO of Zenuity, and held several VP positions at Volvo Cars. He holds a PhD in R&D management and is passionate about high technology environment, sustainability, and leadership. So, given that we only have such a short period of time, I really want to go ahead and kick this off, firstly with Kim. Everlane's website can feel like it doesn't just sell clothes. It can actually feel like a crash course in Fashion Sustainability 101. If you go on there, you can find the company's latest impact report, sustainable fashion terms explained, and even detailed information on how you're adhering to the California Supply Chain Transparency Act, which is pretty great for a mid-sized retailer to have so much of that as its focus. So knowing that sustainability may not be a primary selling point for many customers, or that a green premium on clothes can be a tough sell, can you actually share more about the decision to go into such depth on this particular topic right on your website?
So, sustainability is complicated, as my peers on this panel know, and it's also pretty detailed and can be very intimidating. So, we think of sustainability as information, and the more informed you are as a consumer, the better choices you will have. And we think of our site as a way to inform and educate the consumer and hopefully choose Everlane. But even if they don't choose Everlane, they walk away with more information that they can make better choices. And, we really think that the best way to be sustainable, or the most conscious way to be sustainable, is to really think about where you're purchasing product and use your purchasing power. And that is something that we really try to focus on. But we also want to make it fun and visually stimulating. I've read a lot of impact reports, and they can be very dry. So to make it something that you stay on the page, you want to read more, is the way to really continue to be educated and informed and make better choices. Obviously, you have your day-to-day life, but we also want to make it easier for you to make better choices in consuming other products. So hopefully you stay with Everlane, but if you don't, you walk away and you learn something.
Which I absolutely did. Again, in preparation for this discussion, when I went on there, I didn't even know that there was this breadth of knowledge beyond just going on there to potentially look for shirts, pants, and shoes. And I absolutely agree that many impact reports can feel very dry. So, kind of going through what you and your team put together, it did feel more kind of like a fashion report or a fashion kind of magazine. And so, you use the word choices, and also, I think really defined kind of how you are also thinking about sustainability. And so I would offer that same question to both Dennis and Uyen. So, also both in your bios, the word sustainability and transparency came up quite often. And so, Dennis, I'll ask you first, how are you defining sustainability? And then we can go from there.
Thank you, and really appreciate the action that you're doing, Kim, on your end. So educate the consumer, I think, is really key. When it comes to sustainability, for me, that has been driving my choices all the time. So working with a safe, good automotive brand like Volvo Cars, then going into electric cars, and then seeing electric cars taking off quite substantially, and realizing, looking into textile industry, that there is actually a lack of global suppliers that really can provide circular solutions. That's why I then diverted into changing industry and moving from automotive to textile to see what we can do to impact that. And for us, that manifests in everything we do, trying to minimize our own transportation within the company, but foremost then taking on the task to bring this kind of textile fiber. We focus on polyester, and we secure that can be reused over and over again without being able to bring up more virgin oil from the earth. So that is our mission in life, really secure that polyester, which is like 57% of the world's textile fiber today, can be reused over and over again. We think that is an excellent way of tackling that as a start.
Thanks, Dennis. Uyen, over to you. How are you defining sustainability? Maybe not just in the material that you're creating, but in the way in which you're creating it.
Yeah, to echo with everyone's, I think for me, sustainability isn't just about, reducing harm, right? It's about rethinking how we create, consume, and innovate. And as the founder, I think that's mean being responsible for every step, from sourcing the materials to thinking about what happened for the material and the product when it reached the end of life. So I and the company focus on using first regenerative resources like mushroom, and then waste resources like cells with waste, and how we're making sure that our processes is non-toxic and circular. And in fact, that with TomTex, we have the USDA 100% bio-based certificate for our material. And also we have the vegan certificates for our Syre mushroom as well. And Sabriya, I want to share that for TomTex, sustainability isn't just about the technology, but it's also about the design and craftsmanship. And we are not just a technology company, we also a design brand. So that all the craftsmanship and design behind each piece that we design is as important as the innovation. So design is such a huge part of the human experience that we always create the stimulations, fresh inspiration, and experience that can move us. So I think that is very touch what is the background behind or what we do at TomTex to combine science and design and sustainability together.
Exactly, because it's not just about is your product sustainable, but as Dennis touched on and even Kim touched on too, is the process and getting that material into the clothes that we wear. Is that process sustainable? Is that supply chain sustainable? Dennis, on your website, you say a sustainable supply chain starts with transparency. And a part of that is, kind of touching back onto what Kim said, is also just educating the consumer and the customer about where their products are coming from and how they are getting into their clothes. So I'd like to stick with you, Dennis and Uyen, just briefly around how you are thinking about getting your materials into clothes and or working with some of these small to mid to large size retailers. I'm sure many of our listeners who are either thinking about building brands or thinking about creating new materials, the process of getting the material and then working with brands can be fuzzy and murky at best. So would love to hear your perspective and experience, both with, how you were able to approach designers, approach brands, feedback that they gave you, and maybe some things you had to tweak along the way in order to make successful partnerships. And actually, maybe Dennis, given the work that you've done with the H&M group, I feel like that might be helpful for some folks to hear.
So this is so interesting. This is also what intrigued me with the Syre company. It was actually started by the CFO from H&M Group, recognizing then that they need a big partner, and they saw the sustainability targets and not being able to meet up to them. And then they said, let's create something ourselves then and team up as an industry. So apart from starting the company, they also committed then a huge offtake agreement, which is more than half of their forecasted use of polyester for 7 years period. And that contract is in itself worth $600 million. And that's a great foundation to build a company on. But even though that if we were to do such offtake agreement with all the major brands like the top 5-7, it is still such a small percentage of the overall volume, because the entire distribution of volume and use is so fragmented. So we need to find a way to offer circular materials also to the small and medium-sized retailers. And then that comes with building an ecosystem and building a partnership. And here we are targeting a couple of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3s, and teaming up with them a bit stronger, and then building a platform so we can actually offer circular materials to the many, because that's how we make an impact. So that's a bit our tactics regarding that.
So would you say that it's almost like you were able to show that this model works, and so that it can be replicated at a variety of stages, not just kind of at these larger companies?
Yes, correct. So that's the way to go about. I mean, getting the commitment from the larger companies is great, because then you can make an impact and you can turn from linear to circular, and you can show that this is the way forward, and do that commitment and lead the way in a way. So I think that is really important. But really getting access to everyone is what we are after.
And when, we have been so proud of the successes TomTex has had, both, on the runway, in magazine spreads, and just recently as the green lizard bag, which if you haven't, please do go check it out. I know some of these partnerships came about because of your design background and, partnerships and friendships with those individuals, but could you talk more about how you were able to, kind of convince people to take a chance on a new material?
Yeah, we actually in the different stage compared to dentist, because we launched TomTex less than 3 years ago with like 10 people. So still a lot of processes along the way to scale the material, but we're so excited to now seeing the material on the tour runway and move forward to produce it with the designer that we already partnership with. So actually, from the get-go, we spent a lot of time thinking about how to differentiate ourselves and where we see the material of the future of our materials going, right? So many brands ask if we can make something that mimic small grain leather or calfskin leather. And sure, one of the most common leather textile across fashion, furniture, and even automotive, it is black or just brown material, but it's very tough to stand out. And you look like everyone else. So hitting the performance and the competitive pricing is just the basic and is a must. But how we can go beyond that is something that is missing piece for this innovative material. So my experience working with brand is most designer and design team care less about whether your material is made out of mushroom or algae. They really care about what is the materials look like and feel, and how they related the emotion and the craftsmanship with this material. And design is what makes it different. So craftsmanship is the thing that it take our material to the runway and make people loved it. So the green lady holding our lizard bag is one thing. It's fun, but at the same time, with the same runway show, we make 2 other bags with the designer to show the versatility, something that's fun and creative, but something that we can produce it for the customer as well. But you may be surprised, because a lot of people want to wear the lizard bag than to the toe bag.
Yeah, that actually doesn't surprise me much after I saw it. But actually, I think this would be a good time to maybe turn it back over to Kim. Given the experiences that Dennis and Uyen had with, getting their materials onto the runway into clothes, could you talk to us a little bit more about, from your perspective or your vantage point as a part of a mid-sized retailer who is interested in supporting these new materials, what would you like to see these brands show you? I know Uyen mentioned performance, cost, but are there other specifics that you would like to see? And actually, if you could even mention, when would you like these companies to engage with you? Is it in the process of making their material? Is it after it's done? Would love to kind of hear your perspective there.
Yeah, great question. I'm going to ask for the whole kit and caboodle. So bear with me, because what I'm going to ask for is going to be definitely something innovative and unique that is not out in the market currently. Durability is huge, because that is where we've really struggled in the past. And we can talk a little bit about that if you like. But durable and soft hand or nice hand is also, they have to really work well together, because usually if it's durable, it's not soft. And, Uyen was speaking about this soft premium feel. That's really important for us, especially at our price point. So having the durability piece and the softness that feels premium is huge. Next piece, affordable. This is where we run into a lot of issues, whether it's too expensive, where it knocks it out of the market, or our customer isn't going to understand why it's so expensive. So really being able to tell the story about it and having a really clear story on why this is special and unique, and why is it better than H&M. Just because, Dennis, I know you're working with them. The other really big struggle we have is the lead time. So usually most of our materials that are either sustainable, recycled, or organic are much, much longer lead times than a virgin material. And that really puts us as a mid-sized company, it's a struggle, because to be able to predict the demand and forecast it, maybe even buy it up front, makes it really, really challenging for a mid-sized company. The other thing that we struggled with is, if we want to be unique and first to the market, there's usually an investment required. And that becomes also very challenging for a small to mid-sized company. So how do you help launch a product and bring it to market and really get it out there as a mid-sized company with very little investment, and not having to do these massive forecasts or requirements that are really challenging? And I know that I just asked for everything. So I'd say the most important thing is going to be the product needs to be great. So that's the durability and the hand and the storytelling with fact. That's the other thing. A lot of time people will come to us and say, hey, we have this great product, but they don't have all the facts yet. They don't have all the data yet. And they require a pretty hefty investment up front. And that's where we usually get knocked out. And that's where kind of the bigger brands swoop in a bit. And it's hard for us to bring something to market.
Can I ask if you can give a bit more clarity around when you talk about durability? I know I know for a brand, for your size, it's hard to take big risk. But was there a time where you said, "Look, we want to try something different. It didn't really hit the mark, but you did learn something from it." And was that around durability?
Yeah, and I can explain durability a little bit. So we are a brand that tends to focus on natural fibers, and that's where it gets even trickier. When you have a lot of synthetic materials, those tend to be more durable by nature, right? So we want to stick to more a bigger percentage of durable materials, which is going to be, natural materials, which will be more of your cottons and your wools. And that's where the durability piece gets really tricky, because especially when you're using recycled materials, it can get scratchy, it can pill. The fiber lengths are shorter, so they tend to pill more. And I don't know if everyone knows what pilling is, but those are all the little balls that happen. They can create holes. So from a natural fiber perspective, it's going to be the pilling, holes, long-lasting materials. Because ideally, we want to put stuff out there that lasts a long time, so that you can go to resale, you can have it passed down, it can live a long time. So if it's not durable or pilly or holy, that becomes tricky. Obviously, there's also, when you get into footwear or bags, more of the leather goods, but where is a lot of wear and tear, right? So you need to be able to still wear your product, not have it crease like crazy, not have it have heavy marks. So that durability piece, but still soft, which is why virgin leather tends to kind of can tend to go there is because it's very soft, but it's also quite durable. That is where we've struggled a bit, is finding that nice balance. And then you add the price to it, right?
Yeah, and the title of this session is "Making Fashion Sustainable," and it does feel like, based on just some of the things the three of you have shared, parts of it are. However, um, there's still always room for improvement. And I think that it would be remiss if we didn't spend just a few minutes of our discussion discussing the fact that some very successful brands that focus sustainability have, in the past, I would say 6 months to a year, have recently had to shutter. Most notably, I think for folks in New York, and including myself, was Mara Hoffman, who had been around, I believe, since 2015. And, people could say, oh, well, she had to shutter her brand, so that was a failure. But really, when in fact it felt very successful, the fact that she was able to be around for as long as she was, and have the clothes that she did. And that's only one example. But it would be great to maybe end our discussion on where you see the kind of future of sustainability in fashion, and what are some of the lessons that we can take moving forward, in bringing everyone together to make sure that there are more success stories. And maybe I'll have Dennis start us off.
That's the toughest questions for me, but what I'm trying to do is to create this kind of global supply partner. We're starting then to try to stop the crude oil from happening. So I think the circular model is definitely the way to go. We're also trying to create a textile powerhouse, then bring on perhaps natural fiber as the next ones to bring on. And the what we can offer then is really a different cost point. So by scale comes cost advantages, and then we can enable those brands to really really get the margins that they would need to bring this to life. So I think that would be my perspective. As for the brand perspective, I would very much rely more on Kimma here, I think.
It's tricky. I think the first thing is the product has to be right. Got to have the product right. And I think we've learned leading with sustainability first, it doesn't necessarily transfer into a purchase. So really making sure the product is right, and you can back it up with a nice sustainable story so that they feel really good about what they're purchasing and they feel like they're making the right choice. But the product's got to be right, and it has to be really clear on why it's right. That's kind of the storytelling piece, I'd say.
Yeah, I think I really echo with Kim about this. I think I hear you, but I truly believe that like the world is changing, and we have a lot of consumer that align their purchase, their value decisions with what they believe in to incorporate into their life. So I think that it's not the trend anymore; it's the future. Even though we see a lot of people shut down, but just one or two. I still have more possibility in some of the designers that I work with at this moment, like Colina Strada. Like she is thriving. She's struggling in the last, I think, when she started 15 years ago. But now the goal changed. And the way you do business in somewhat like e-commerce, and the narrative telling the story, not just really depending on the department store anymore, it can somehow uplift and redirect the purchase order within the brand. So I think it will be the combination between new sustainable material, innovative material, with the new way of doing business, that sustainability now can be a profit to a brand, not just an add-on.
Yeah. And it's table stakes, right? Like sustainability with the yarn generation, like it has to be there.
Let me share a fun example. It was I have some hopes for the younger generation. I had my son to visit the store, Icebug, footwear brand local in Scandinavia, now spreading a bit. But the salesperson, he was approaching my son, holding up two shoes, saying, "This is 10 kilograms, this is 15 kilograms of CO2." And then my son just went directly for the 10 kilogram. I think if you are doing what Kim is doing on the webpage, educating around the CO2, then you can make an educated decision. And I have a high hope for the younger generation to actually pursue that, despite some of the other brands around there.
Well, I think that is a hopeful message to end on. I want to thank all three of you for taking some time out of your very busy days and lives to share some of your perspectives on how we can continue to make fashion sustainable. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Thank
having us.
you.